Welcome to Primetime. I'm Susan Hoskins, the director of the Princeton Senior Resource Center and your host. Primetime is a show for people in the prime of life. One of the things that we know is a major concern for people in the prime of life is memory and brain health. And so today my guest is Cynthia Green. Dr. Cynthia Green is Assistant Clinical Professor of Psychiatry at Mount Sinai School of Medicine, also the President of Memory Arts, a company that delivers memory and brain health fitness programs, and Cynthia is one of the primary trainers in that program. In addition, Cynthia is an author of several books on memory health, most recently, brand new, this one, which is Brain Power Game Plan, and we're going to talk about that some today as well. So welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start with one of the main questions that I know is on people's minds, and that is memory loss inevitable? Is it something that happens to everyone?
You know, it used to be that we would think that as we grew older, it was inevitable that we would lose our memory, or at least some of our memory capacity. People would worry that there was a slippery slope down to dementia over a certain age. And that is absolutely not the case. While as we grow older, we have some kinds of intellectual changes in the same way that we get gray hair or get wrinkles or maybe can't run for the bus as quickly as we could when we were younger. Those changes are really not something that will necessarily progress, and it's something that doesn't necessarily impair our functioning to the point where we will find that it's hard to function or live independently. Age is a risk factor for dementia. That's without question. It's probably the leading risk factor for dementia.
We have statistics like, I think it's 50% of people over 80 or 85.
Over 85, it's about 47%
show some kind of dementia.
Right.
But there's a lot of life between now and
Yes,
85.
Absolutely. And those statistics are on a generation of individuals who didn't have the opportunity to take care of their brain based on the evidence from the science and learning what they can do to promote better brain health and perhaps protect themselves from diseases such as dementia or stroke so that they could preserve their intellectual functioning and vitality for longer.
Do those things, are those things helpful even to people who know that there's a family history? Because I know that some of the folks that I see are particularly concerned because one of their parents had Alzheimer's and they're really worried that it would happen to them. So are these kinds of activities and lifestyle choices things that can help?
First of all, the genetic contributions of a disease like Alzheimer's is very unknown. One of the things I always like to remind folks, especially those of us who are in our 70s and 60s right now, is that at the time that dementia was diagnosed in our parents and grandparents, the diagnostic procedures were not really as good as they are now. So there may not have been neuroimaging techniques. It may have been that someone actually had a history of small strokes rather than Alzheimer's disease, and that was something that they were more vulnerable to because they were overweight or suffered from diabetes that was untreated. So you always have to take that genetic component with a grain of salt, especially if you're not really sure what kind of dementia your parent or grandparent may have suffered from. Secondly, the genetic contributions themselves are very unclear. We know that there are certain genes that increase our risk for Alzheimer's disease, but whether or not we are going to develop that disease as a result of having the gene is something that hasn't been determined. So while there's a stronger genetic contribution for people who have what we call early onset Alzheimer's disease, with the onset of the disease before age 65, if you have a relative that developed the disease over the age of 65, I would say that it's a little less clear. Now that said, we can all benefit from the kinds of lifestyle changes and behaviors that enhance brain health. Because even if we have a genetic risk, it is a risk in the same way that we might have a risk for cardiac disease based on our family history. So that our lifestyle and what we do and how we treat our bodies can really make a difference in how we deal with that risk in our own lifetime.
And I know that a lot of your focus, and as is ours, is on prevention, of trying to lead healthy lifestyles so that we prevent the kinds of things that increase our risk factors. And
Absolutely. And just to give a few examples of that, you know, people don't associate things such as weight management and physical activity and social engagement with preventing Alzheimer's disease or dementia. But in fact, if you look especially recently at the science, there's abundant evidence that those areas, in addition to many others, really impact our long-term functioning in terms of our brain health and may in fact lower our risk for dementia. Let's take physical exercise as an example, because there's a lot of data showing that people who participate in regular aerobic activity significantly reduce their risk for dementia. They also increase their daily intellectual performance, which is something we haven't really talked about. But you know what a lot of us complain about are things that we forget day to day, such as dividing our attention and not being able to stay on task, or forgetting where we put the keys or someone's name. When we do that, those are really issues more of everyday performance. And exercise has also been shown to benefit our attention and reasoning and memory performance day to day. So that's a great example of a lifestyle modification where if we got out and walked every day briskly for 45 minutes, it would really benefit our brain health.
So all those things that the doctors are telling us, you know, this will be better for your weight, this will be better for your heart, all those things, it's also better for your brain. To get regular exercise.
Absolutely. And people are just more familiar with that kind of advice for their heart. So one of the things that I like to tell clients is that what's good for your heart is good for your brain. So if you think about those things such as getting regular physical exercise, eating well, dealing with stress, those are also good for your brain.
I've read some of your writing, and there were a couple of examples that came to mind. I mean, I know that just from observation, I have found that when I'm tired, when I stay up late at night working and writing a grant, or I'm really pushing myself and I don't get more than 6 hours of sleep, I forget a lot more.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think I'm at top performance, and then I realize, oops, I missed a meeting, you know, I'm just not holding on to the pieces as well.
And you know, that's one of the messages that I love to deliver, because people worry about their memory so much. And especially older adults who don't get a good night's sleep because they wake up during the night, they may be on medications that make it necessary for them to void more frequently, and they have trouble going back to sleep. When you don't get a good night's sleep, no matter what your age, your attention and focus is off. And when your attention and focus is off, you're not going to learn things such as a name or something someone just told you. You're going to be more distractible. And that's not a memory problem. That's a sleep problem. But people worry that it is a memory problem.
You know, if I fixed my lifestyle so that I was getting 8 hours of sleep every night, I wouldn't have that worry about how come I'm forgetting stuff that I used to remember.
And that's really, if you know, we look at it, a boomer problem, because we are dividing our time in so many different ways that one of the things that's easiest for us to give up is sleep. Because it's the one thing on our schedule sometimes we feel we have control over. So we'll get up at 5:30 in the morning to go exercise. And while the exercise is great and we need to fit it in, we may need that sleep just as much.